What's up, everyone? In today's video, I'm going to cover the earnings on deck for next week. Last week was a huge week of earnings. We had most of the big techs reporting with companies like Meta, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Apple. It was a huge week. Nonetheless, next week is also pretty big. So I'm going to cover 5 stocks that I'm keeping my eyes on. I will look into the technicals just a little bit. I'm not going to do much like in-depth TAs on these stocks. I'm going to try to keep this video pretty short as I usually do. Just want to make sure you guys are informed of, some of the bigger companies that are reporting next week. And one of the things that excites me most about earnings, right, is not that the stock might skyrocket, if I have a position, but on the other hand, it a lot of times gives you opportunities to buy stocks at a discount that you usually would not be able to, right? And I'm only talking about high quality companies though. I'm not talking about like some speculative play, right? Like companies that have been very, very bullish and they seem to never dip. And sometimes the expectations are so high for these companies, all it takes is for still a good earnings report, but just a slight miss where nothing really changes about the company's fundamentals, but yet the stock drops, right? Those are my favorite buy the dip opportunities. But with that being said, let's go ahead and see some of the biggest earnings on deck for next week. And again, this is not our Mag 7, but we have some big companies reporting, right? So some companies that I'm specifically watching, we got Palantir. This stock just made another all-time high. It's trading at like a 600 price to earnings. They have, in my opinion, with this stock, it's gone up so much. And could it keep going? Yes, they are like the best at always just creating new partnerships and more news that's coming out and this and that. They always have momentum in the stock, right? They always have it seems like a new catalyst. But at this point, in my opinion, there's just so much valuation for this stock to grow into. Like I said, they're trading at, I think, like a 400 forward price to earnings, right? Mind you, like the market average is like a 25, 30, right? And that's pretty high. So it has a lot of growth to grow into, right? Yes, like they have all these deals and partnerships and whatnot, but like the valuation is already baking that in my opinion. So obviously, you think stocks don't have to keep going up, and they do. Just like some stocks keep going down, and you feel like they can't go any lower, and they keep going, right? The market's not always fair. It's not always all about the fundamentals in the short term, right? But in the long term, that always seems to play out. Uber, that's another big one. I love this company. I think this is a good buy the dip if it were to dip. So that's going to be one that I'm definitely keeping my eyes on. Same thing with AMD. All 3 of these companies, right, have been on a tear. AMD is one of my top, want to buys. I've been buying it and I did sell out of most of my positions just because I felt like it was just very, just been on a very big run lately. I wanted to pull back so badly. And if you're an AMD shareholder, obviously I hope it goes up for you guys. Just for me, the fact that I'm not really holding a position right now, I'm like, fingers crossed that AMD drops because I will be buying the dip on that one. Something like a Palantir, right? They have like partnerships with like Google and Microsoft and PlayStation and Xbox. They have like every partnership that you could possibly think of. They have their OpenAI deal. Again, they don't need to be the next Nvidia, but there is so much room for growth in this company. I just feel like in the short term, a lot of this has been priced in, something like a Palantir, right? But hey, look at Palantir. It just never goes down, it seems like. And when it does dip, it gets bought up pretty quickly. But moving on, so Robinhood, another one that I think is an interesting play. If it were to dip, I think that could be a good buying opportunity. The Trade Desk, I made a video on this. This stock is still trading at very, very low levels compared to where it has traded in the past. This will be an interesting one. This is a very volatile stock, so it tends to move like 15 to 20% during earnings. So definitely be careful with that one. But like I said, I'm going to look at the charts on a few of these. And then obviously there's other companies, right? Shopify, Spotify, and then Supermicro. That's another interesting one because most of your semiconductor stocks are all reaching all-time highs, right? Like your ASML and your TSM and AMD, NVIDIA, all those companies have reached all-time highs already. And it's just, I think there's just a lot of bad sentiment behind this company, but at the end of the day, like the numbers are there, the valuation's pretty low now. So yeah, I mean, this actually might be one that we go and look into the charts a little bit, because this is an interesting play for sure. And then you have McDonald's, you have AppLovin, that's been a pretty hot stock. You have Qualcomm, you have ARM, Snapchat. Man, I mean, there's a lot of big earnings next week as well. So this is going to be a jam-packed week. Hims and Hers, that's another one that, would be interesting to see how their earnings come out. DraftKings, that's another one I've made a video on that I'm pretty excited to see what happens there. But nonetheless, if you are a day trader or a swing trader, then you want volatility, and therefore earnings season is the perfect recipe for that. A big week nonetheless. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the charts. I'm going to show you 5 stocks that I'm watching or keeping my eyes on right now during earnings. And this might not be like I'm in the position, so I'm watching it, right? I'm watching to see what happens, right? Like, am I going to have an opportunity to buy the dip? Or is this thing just going to continue higher? Whatnot. Okay, so the first stock that I'm going to be keeping my eyes on is Uber. This is a stock I just honestly I really like for the long term. I think they have a ton of growth potential. One of the reasons why this thing probably hasn't really gone up higher than it has already, just because of Tesla and like their robo taxis and whatnot. But yeah, just at the end of the day, what I can see happening is Tesla forming a partnership with Uber, right? When their robo taxis finally go live, and I think that's still a long ways down the road. And so obviously in the next year or two, I don't see Uber really, seeing much downside in my opinion. I just, there's even the scenario where a lot of people are like, hey, I don't even want to buy a car anymore. I'm just going to Uber around, right? And if you live in the city or whatnot, it probably makes sense. So again, I'm not going to talk too much about the company or whatnot, but I like the company, and real simple, right? Like I said, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time, but if this stock were to dip back down into like the 90s, or man, like anywhere down to this level here where this resistance is, like I would say this would be my buy box, right? Like if that stock just came down into this level, like wow, I'm buying it, like probably no questions asked. Again, not financial advice, just stocks that I'm watching, right? And that I think have a lot of upside. These are just super bullish stocks, and I think there's, in my opinion, just not a lot of risk when it comes to these. I would not be surprised, though, if this thing breaks out to all-time highs. So, again, if it does, it is what it is. My goal here, again, is just to try to find value in stocks that I like during this time of the season. And then just zooming out here, right? I mean, we can just see this is just a really bullish company. And, hey, look, what do you know? I made a video the other day kind of saying I like to buy around the 200-day moving average on really high-quality stocks. Look where that is. Very, very close to where that line is I drew. Right here. Yeah, that's my buy box. That's if it were to dip there, I think that's going to be a prime opportunity. So anyway, moving on to the next stock that I'm watching, it's going to be AMD. Man, I do love this stock. I don't love where it's trading at right now, right? I mean, honestly, I was in this stock around like 130. I was stuck in it, honestly. I was buying the dip right here, right, stuck in this trend, and I kind of ran out of money to buy at that point, and my average was right around like 125 to 130-ish. I had a couple positions, and so yeah, I mean, I made money on it. It took a little while to wait it out, but I had faith in the company, and I'm beating myself up now because obviously I should have just held it, but I had made several trades on this way up too, and I just decided to cut my positions up here just to go a little bit more risk off. And again, this is a stock though where if it dips down, I would love to buy the dip. I don't know how far it will actually dip. Let's take a look at some of these levels though. Obviously, again, right, if we get down to the 200-day moving average, anywhere in between here and here, right, that's my buy box here. And that's a huge decline, but you got to get this. Like, if anything is bad about this company, yeah, I doubt that's going to happen. This is my, absolutely no-brainer. Like, I'm like all in at this level, right? Doubt it's going to get there unless it has pretty bad earnings, and then this thing just decides that it's going to kind of sell off. I doubt it's just going to wick down 25%. But hey, this stock is pretty volatile. It's not saying it's impossible, but what I can see being the more likely scenario, dropping down to here, right? Or possibly back down to, these resistance levels, right? Let me draw a line down there. Down around here somewhere, right? I can see it bouncing back down to here. If the earnings are not that well. So this is an interesting one though. Definitely want to keep my eyes on. I'm praying that this one dips something, right? Because I'm gonna be looking to start accumulating some shares, and depending on how much it dips, right? If it's a huge dip, then yes, maybe I'll go a little bit heavier. But if it's a smaller dip, then maybe I'll just start dollar cost averaging, because I think for long-term prospects, I mean, this is a no-brainer. Moving on to the next stock is Robinhood, another super bullish stock that you just don't get many opportunities to buy the dip on, right? So, like I said, this is why I like earnings, because sometimes, maybe the company says, hey, you know what? We were guiding this much, and now we're going to cut that back a little bit. And that doesn't mean that they still can't blow that out of the water, but if they do that, right, nothing changes about the company. Maybe they just feel like, hey, we're slowing down a little bit, and stock tends to crash for no reason, right? Those are perfect buying opportunities. Again, levels I'm looking here, man, I was buying the stock back to the 20s, and this is sometimes where you just like, and this is why I decided to be more of a swing trader and hold things for a longer time, because man, like look at how these stocks run when they start running. I took small profits on this thing, right? Thought I was winning. I should have just held it. Would have made 10 times my money. Nonetheless, hey, shoulda, coulda, woulda. You're always going to have those moments in the markets. This is another level that I'm looking right at the 200-day moving average on the 4-hour and in between here as well, right? So about a 15% decline. Again, these are pretty big moves. Doubt it's going to happen. Just showing you levels that I'm watching to where if it does, and this is my thing, right? So if I have like 15 stocks that I'm watching for levels, right? Like it's one of them are bound to hit those levels, and it will. Like maybe it won't be this earnings, maybe it'll be next earnings, maybe it'll be in a market downturn or other news event. But what I've found, if you're patient enough and you really wait for levels, like it's possible or very possible for it to reach that level. Unless it's a Palantir or something, sorry. It just never dips, right? It just straight up always. But I guarantee it will happen eventually. You will see a big sell-off in Palantir stock, and things will kind of get balanced out before it continues up. Just my opinion. Don't hate me if you're a Palantir shareholder. So that's what I'm looking for here. Again, based off of previous history of companies that enter into the S&P 500, which Robinhood has, I would not be surprised if this thing breaks up higher. History shows that these stocks just tend to keep running after they're included into the S&P 500. But this is another great stock I think is a good buying opportunity on the dip. All right, let's move on to my next one, which is TTD. So this one's a little bit different. All right, this is a little bit more risky. I full disclosure, I do have a position in this stock, but this is super volatile, right? I mean, you see these wicks down. I mean, this is serious. So just be careful trading this one. But in my opinion, I just I do think this is a point where it's valued pretty well for a company like this. I made a video on this stock actually already. I'll leave the link up here. It's a little bit older, but I mean we're trading around the same levels when I made the video, right? It's kind of been a little bit up and down. It's just, I know what it's doing. It's waiting for earnings, right? And I made this comment in another video where this is what you always find out, right? Or this is how it always seems to work. Like to me, like this is showing signs of a reversal, right? It's just waiting for the, break above this level right here, right? Like once we break that level, it's going to be a big breakout. This level right here, it's going to be a big breakout, in my opinion, right? This stock's going to trade back up to this level, right? Right here, where you're like, oh my God, like, are we going to break out or not? Earnings will be the catalyst as to whether or not we get rejected hard off of this or we break back above, right? And if we do, you can see here in the, back here, this was the same scenario. This was earnings, right? Where, I mean, does this not look almost identical? Seriously, like, look at this pattern. Like, patterns tend to repeat themselves. They don't always have to, but look at this. Up, down, right? This dip, back up, consolidates, what'd I say? Gets back up to this level, earnings hits, boom, skyrockets. Well, look at this. Down, dips, back up, consolidates, probably get back up to this level, earnings comes out. You tell me. Like I said, if it's bad earnings, it's bad earnings. There's nothing you can do about it. The stock's going down. And that's where it can be really risky. But it just seems to me that the expectations are super low, which is why the stock is super low. And typically in those scenarios, it doesn't take much for them to make investors happy. So another one that I am keeping my eyes on for sure. So next up is DraftKings, and this is not the one that I'm necessarily looking to buy the dip on because I've already been buying the dip on it. If it dips more, will I buy more? Yes. I did make a video on this one as well. I'll leave a link up there at the top if you want to check it out. But check, I said if we broke this level here, then we're coming straight back down to 29, and we did, right? So, zooming out, if we break this level, that's not pretty at all. I think the chances are not likely, but if we do, this would be our next level, 25-ish range, right? So if you're looking at a buy box, if you don't have a position in DraftKings, and obviously you don't want to take the risk, because it is kind of like, it is risky to buy something right before earnings, because it's just a 50-50, honestly. Like, no one can predict this stuff. But if you have more of a long-term mindset, then again, these are just opportunities, and it might take some time for it to play out. Just sometimes you get lucky and it plays out right away. Sometimes you don't. But this would be the buy box that I would look for, that if we dip down in this level after earnings, right? If you just want to play it safe, like, let me see what the earnings are, and then I'll decide. This would be my buy box, right? Like, this, man, like, I'm in up higher, right? Like, obviously in a perfect world, if I waited and it got down to here, like, I'd be like pounding the drum on it. But nonetheless, this will be an interesting one. Definitely keep my eyes on it. Not financial advice. If you like the stock, if you've been thinking about it, and you're really on the fence of whether or not you should buy now or wait, then what you could do is just do like a smaller allocation now, wait for earnings, and then make your other allocation after, right? So then let's say it rips up. You got a small position, you're making some. If it rips down, guess what? You weren't in your full position size. Like, it's easy for you to average down from there, right? Just buy more. You get what I'm saying, right? I think that would be the smartest way to play it. But those are the top 5 that I'm watching. And then just for shits and giggles, I haven't looked at this chart in a while. Wow. This is Palantir. Arguably, yes, this is another one. Hate the valuation on it, but it's got a lot of long-term prospects. This, I don't know. It could keep going, I guess. But this would be the level I'd be watching right here. And that's just because you can see this is the trend line, right? I mean, if it's going to continue to be bullish, it will probably be like, this would be it right here. This would be your buy box in between here. Because it's very well that we just come back down and we just bounce right off of this resistance here, right? Like, we broke out, come back down. That's your typical, that'll be your first buy box right there. And I mean, I don't know, what is that? 6%. Yeah. Not really getting me super excited. Get down to 12%. Again, I could see it bouncing from there for sure if it made it down that far. But yeah, this is one me personally, I don't want to chase. And that's just one thing that I've learned with trading and mistakes I've made before. And yes, sometimes it keeps going and you're like beating yourself up about it, but you're never going to time it perfectly. You're never going to do it. All right, so one more stock. I'm doing a couple more than I planned on originally, but I just feel like this is some good stuff. And this is one that I think is definitely worth adding to your watch list, and that's SMCI. I mentioned it. As I mentioned, all these semiconductors are reaching all-time highs or have surpassed all-time highs. And this is pretty much the only one that is lagging behind, right? And so there's really, in my opinion, no reason why, unless it's just a complete fraud and scam of a company, but trading at a 22, 23 price to earnings right now, most of these companies are trading at like a 40 or a 50 minimum. Again, it seems like this is poised to break out another volatile stock, so be careful. If it were to dip, and to be honest, I think the levels that we're trading at now are not bad, but this would probably be the level. 16% down, which, again, this stock's volatile. I've seen it drop 15, 20% during earnings. Yeah, it could get pretty bad, but vice versa. This thing could break out because, remember, I mentioned this again. It looks like the reversal is forming, right? We zoom in a little bit. We're above the 4-hour. This is our level right up here that we're trying to break. It's hard to say where it's at. I mean, this would technically be it right here. If we break out of this level, it's going a lot higher, right? This has been resistance. So this could be one I could see running back up to this level right around here before earnings. And then when earnings hits, boom, or it gets rejected hard off that level again. So nonetheless, these are kind of levels that I'm looking at with this stock. Again, if it gets back down to the moving average on the daily, I think that's a pretty good buy opportunity. Zooming in on the 4 hour, right, there's a ton of, resistance or now support, because previous resistance becomes new support, right? So definitely one, I believe, with a lot of upside, still trading at really low levels compared to its competitors. That's all I have for you guys in this one. I hope you found this video helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.